nose. And it's also referred to, for obvious reasons, the wasp bone, which you can see. And it's just going to be cradling like right there behind the nose and at the center of your skull. And it's almost like this little nest for the pineal gland, which, Descartes has called the seat of the soul. So whatever you want to believe about that, it is an imperative part of the endocrine system at the least, and all of the orchestration of our hormonal body and organizing those things. But just take note here also of the shape, which is pretty stunning. And then secondly, I want to show you all this one. So I just am in love with the way that the body seems to have this echo and this pattern of repetition. And I was also looking, and I didn't quite get the image that I wanted, but also of the lungs inside the ribs. There's this beautiful kind of like butterfly, moth-like shape to the structure itself. So anyway, it's just kind of nice for our brain to like have this visual image, and then we'll take that into our sit. Okay, all right. So go ahead and find a comfortable seat, and take any amount of comfort that you might enjoy. If you want to interlace the hands behind the back before we begin and find a little uplift in the sternum and spreading of the breastplate, you can take that. You might want to let the head drop from one side to the other and just feel the length of the trapezii, so that then when you finally come to rest the crown on top of the tail, you can feel a sense of release and relief. So not only when we stack our bones intelligently is there this release to all the muscles that are kind of holding us in place. If we're leaning forward or sometimes we're a little cattywampus and we're going to one side or the other, and it takes energy to hold our body. And so you'll feel a sense of release when you stack. And then there's also the autonomic nervous system, and that place where there's just this internal, beyond the pulmonary structures into the body, this internal full body exhale of relief. And so just let yourself also feel, in addition to the release of what's muscularly bound, a relief. And this goes beyond just our structure. There can be sometimes this synonymous place where even in the brain we are holding. And again, this echo or this mirror of what we're bound to in the brain or in the body when we're leaning, when we're contracting, when we have an injury, when we engage in life, which is all of us every day. And so just that place that it becomes so necessary to get still and quiet. And to feel the sense of relief, of coming back home, of arriving deeper in the bones. And then have a sense from that stacking, from that verticality at your center. Have a sense also of the image that I just showed, the sphenoid bone. And again, like a nest for the pineal gland, for even the brain itself that's kind of hovering above. But feel that little gentle, almost like the palm of a hand, like you would just so tenderly hold something that's vulnerable. And then feel, so the structures of bones in all of their stability allow what is fluvial and flexible and forever in movement to be in movement. So we have these beautiful paradoxes inside of ourselves that we get to understand in the world at large when we feel what is bone, and then what is blood, what is lymph, what is the endocrine system, the respiratory system, and all of these things that are in flux and fluid. And so come back and feel that centerpiece, wasp bone, wasp-like, winged, there at the very center of your skull. And when you really literally start to sense your bones, this is another way to bring about that deeper place that is a bit of a relief. And something about taking our attention out and up and constantly scanning the world has its own beautiful aspects, and this place of learning and engaging and interchange. But to come back home, to come back to what's deep, to come back to what's solid, brings the balance that is so necessary for this body to be in health and healing. And then from a sense of that place that is innermost, middlemost in the skull, then traverse the center of you again, whether it's the spinal column, the spinal cord, or even a sense of the Sushumna Nadi, more subtle and energetic, in the plumb line. And then go down to that also moth or butterfly-like shape at the base. And just feel here the echo, the repetition of bone, this beautiful design. And having just seen and taken the image in with your eyes, maybe see if you can translate that into really sensing the iliac crest and the beautiful wings of the bone, in the center of the sacrum, and then the coccyx between the two, dropping and dipping down. And notice when the awareness rests, not only at what is center, what is the very middle, the skeleton, but also what is lower in the form. How, again, that sense of relief, of anchoring, of home, of roots, of all these things that indicate a certain stillness when the world is swirling and swarming, mental activity. Just coming back to what is inside and what is low. And then as if you could turn the dial like you did on the transistor radio, turn the dial of gravity up. Feel this relationship to the pelvis itself grow heavier, or like throwing an anchor over the side of the ship, just dropping down. Feel also the skin. Sense gravity as it really drips down off of bone. And then from there, like a single sprouting flower, feel something that is so subtle, life itself, growing up the center of you. As everything else hangs heavy, just feel it lift, something internal, something center, something navigated only by you, understood only by you. And as it makes its way up the belly and through and behind the heart and lungs, the esophagus, the center of the skull, feel its growth and rise directly opposite the outer body, which gently hangs soft and surrendered. And for the next few moments here, for the remainder of our meditation, allow yourself to really rest into that place that is a relief and a release. That is aware of what is center in you. The pelvis, the sphenoid bone, this beautiful little echo. And then the very center, the Sushumna Nadi. And time and again, as we sit, let yourself sense the bones, sense the body. And then notice the breath. And notice this interchange of the space element. And notice as your attention goes to breath, a softening and spaciousness into all of you. It's kind of like stepping into another dimension. And all of the release and the relief that comes in the body that reorganizes itself, the autonomic nervous system that softens, the rebalancing that happens when we trigger our parasympathetic nervous system, all of this happens of its own accord inside of the body. We have only to allow that to happen. And so just rest and watch. If you find at any point that the mind or the brain gets hijacked by a pattern of thought, just let yourself curiously notice what that is. What is the train of thought that takes precedence suddenly in the system? And let yourself just be with it, notice. And then just as water droplets get consumed by the spaces around them over time. Just let it be absorbed into the system. And so without negation or even pushing away, just let it be absorbed into the fabric of you and come back and maybe anchor into literal bone, the sphenoid, pelvis, the spinal column, this column, just as in Rome it would hold the structure together. Feel also just what is literal in you, the skeleton. Feel the relief and the release of coming home to coming to what's deep. And then let that just drop you off at this place where you can watch the breath. And again, as if you step through a portal and into this other dimensional space, crossing the threshold of breath awareness. But only after you find what is solid and real in this body, in this moment. Both are true. And for the last moment or two, just work on your own with these anchors, with these senses of what softens, what rises, what's center. And then into what is infinite via the breath. Float the hands palm to palm in front of the heart. And bow third eye to fingertips. intentionally sealing in this practice together today. Namaste.